Hi there, Eve here from Vitamin Eve Nutrition Counseling, and today we are going to have an eat along. So if you're hungry, grab your food and let's eat together. So to get started, what I want to do is set up a nice environment for myself, and the way I'd like to do that is by lighting this candle. So take a moment and reflect on your environment and see what you could do to make it more pleasing and a little bit more conducive to having a relaxed, peaceful space. Maybe it means taking your stuff off the table. Maybe it means, sitting at a table instead of standing. Whatever it is, take a moment to do that. So I'm going to take a moment to light this candle. And as I do, I want to set an intention or a few intentions for this meal. And one of my intentions is to be present with my body and really tune into the signals that it's giving me. Another intention is to be present with my food as I'm eating it, really savor and enjoy. And also, not to ruin my lipstick, I like to use that one just for fun. How about you? If you want to share your intentions in the comments below, I'd love to know what your intentions are before you start eating a meal, or at least this meal. And what are you having? Today I'm having my homemade 2-bean soup. It's a recipe I kind of made up, and it's different every single time. But if you want to know what's in this, you could write that in the comments below, and I could share my little recipe with you and how I put this together. So let's jump in. But oh yeah, before we do, let's tune into our bodies. Where are you in terms of hunger and fullness? I just came from running a few errands and I let myself get a little bit hungrier than I wanted. So on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being stuffed and 0 being famished, I would say I'm at a 3, which is like pretty hungry, 2, maybe even a little bit dangerously hungry. So that's where I'm at right now as I'm starting this meal. Where are you in that hunger fullness scale? How hungry are you? And what are you having? Let's take a moment to be present with our food. Notice what it smells like. Notice what it looks like. The bowl is warm. Right now that I'm holding this bowl, it's nice and hot. So you could even notice the temperature of the food if you want. So just notice what there is available to notice using your senses with the food you're about to have. And let's go ahead and take our first bite. Let's see if I could hold this. So, I'll try not to make any slurpy sounds as I eat this. But this is really good. I really love this soup. This is a staple at my house. I make this at least once a week. And I just keep it in the fridge for those times where I don't feel like cooking something. I want something easy to pull out. So earlier this week, I made a video about how to use portion control to help prevent emotional eating. And I'd love to talk about that a little bit deeper here in this video. As we eat together. And as you eat, notice, are you present with the food? Noticing what it looks like, what it smells like, and what it tastes like. It's so easy to be distracted while you're eating that you could forget what your food actually tastes like. So take a moment to savor the flavors of the food as you're eating. So good. And as I'm talking here, if you ever remember, you could even take a break from your food and take a few breaths and check in where you are in that hunger and fullness. Pay attention to see if you're present with your food, how you're liking it. And so in the video I made earlier this week about how to use portion control to prevent overeating, I talked about 3 methods that I really love, and I want to share that with you now. The first method that I share is eating adequate portions throughout the day to help prevent getting too hungry. Because I tell people, if you're not getting adequate portions of food, not only do you get too hungry, which puts you in a higher likelihood of overeating, when your body is famished, when you're not getting enough nutrition, you're also more likely to be in an emotional state. So if you struggle with things like anxiety, depression, indecision, if you let yourself get too hungry, those things all get worse. So one tool that you could use to prevent emotional overeating using portion control is to make sure that you're getting adequate portions of nutritious foods like carbohydrates, proteins, fats. So one client that did this in our work together, she reintegrated having carbohydrates because she tried to avoid those foods. And when she started to have carbohydrates again, she noticed that she was having an easier time dealing with situations that were previously emotional. She no longer went to food to deal with her feelings of insecurity. So reflect on your own intake. What nutrients do you need to make sure that you're having to make sure that you're not eating emotionally or overeating because of a lack of nutrition? The second tip around how to use portion control to help prevent overeating, this is so good, is having another bite. Is by actually including normal portions of your trigger foods earlier in the day. So if you tend to notice that there's certain foods that you go to, to deal with your emotions, actually including portions of those, reasonable portions of those, earlier in the day when you're not triggered, maybe after a meal, to help take the stigma, to take the charge away from those foods. So a client who I was working with would oftentimes eat chocolatey foods to deal with her emotions. So what she started to do is sometimes after her lunch, when she would have her tea, she'd have like maybe a fun size of M&Ms or a few Oreos, or maybe one of those puddings, like those individual packs of pudding, after her lunch. And she noticed by doing that, by taking the stigma, taking the charge away from these foods in her own mind, that she was actually less likely to overeat or binge on those foods later on. So think about the types of foods that you may eat when you're triggered, and how can you include reasonable portions of those foods during your day when you're not triggered to help take the charge away from those foods. And for some people that I work with, and I know for me at some point in my healing, the thought of doing that was terrifying. The thought of having trigger foods available was something that I didn't feel I was able to do. So if that's you, I want you to know you're not alone, and I'd be happy to help. So if you want, you could reach out to me. On the description below, I'll actually include a place where you could actually sign up to have a session to talk about what's going on with your charged foods. I like to offer complimentary sessions for the people who are in this community, just so you can know how much I love that you're here, and so you can have a tighter bond. So if you haven't had a session before, you could sign up for that. And the third tool on how to use portion control to help overcome emotional eating is, and this one's going to be like very interesting, is by actually planning to eat emotionally, actually having a portion of food to help you deal with your emotions. So if you're in the phase of your recovery where you know that you don't yet know how to feel your feelings without using food, that's actually a place to be. You could actually plan to have a pre-portioned amount of food to take the edge off of your feelings. And what I really love about this method is it really honors where you are. You could still use food to cope with your emotions, but because the food is pre-portioned, it increases the likelihood that you won't get too full or get too stuffed and have that whole shame and guilt cycle. So to illustrate how one of my clients used this, is she was going through a tough phase, and she knew that she would like food to help her deal with the emotions that were coming up for her. So while she was going through this, what she would do for herself is have a finite amount of food prepared for herself. So when she came home from work, where she would usually do her emotional overeating and her binging, she actually had something prepared for herself, and that took the edge. Eating that food emotionally took the edge off of her feelings. So she was able to be home without being obsessed with food, and she also didn't get too full, and she felt like that really helped her. So to recap, let's talk about the 3 tools I'm sharing here, and I'm curious to know if I left anything out, if there's anything you want to add. But before I go there, let's take a moment to tune into our bodies. How are you feeling? Where are your thoughts? Are you able to be present with your food? Are you chewing? Where are you in terms of hunger and fullness? I'm going to check in with myself. And I like to say I'm a 5, I'm a neutral, starting to feel satisfied, leaning in towards that 6. How about you? And by the way, if you're comparing yourself to how much I'm eating, please don't. You don't know what I ate before this. You don't know what I'm going to eat after this. And I love to share that in these videos because so many of us compare ourselves to others. And anytime you see an influencer or somebody eating, you never know what else they're eating or not eating. So what you need is different than what I need. So take a moment to assess where you are. How much more food do you feel you need to feel satisfied? Or maybe you're satisfied right now. And if you are, you could end the video here, or you could hang out as we continue to talk about this stuff. So I want to recap the 3 ways that you could use portion control to help overcome emotional eating. The first one, again, is to include adequate portions of food throughout the day to make sure you're not getting too hungry. The second one is including moderate, or you could say normal or reasonable portions of the trigger foods earlier in the day when you're not triggered. So you kind of take the charge away from the foods, they become more neutral, and that way you're less likely to use those foods emotionally. And the third tip is actually pre-portioning the food. If you're going to use food emotionally, if that's where you are in your recovery, actually planning for that, acknowledging that, and having a portion of food available for yourself to take the edge off of your feelings. So let's check in. I'm actually getting full. I actually forgot to, crumble some chips over my soup. I usually do that. So I'm gonna have a couple right now. So I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to know, what did you eat? What did you find helpful about this video? And if you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up so I know to make more of these. And finally, sometimes if you're dealing with forbidden foods or trigger foods, sometimes it could be helpful to have somebody eat it with you. So if you're out there and you would like to eat something together and you want to see me eat something, something delicious, nothing weird or anything, you could let me know and we could have an eat along with a food that you feel will be helpful for you. So yeah, comment below. I love to hear from you, and thanks so much for eating with me. This was a real pleasure. I eat so many of my meals alone, so I love it anytime I could eat with somebody else. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Happy eating, everybody. Bye.